Welcome members, welcome viewers. My name is Stephen Nicholson. I'm the CEO and president of RMA, the Rocky Mountain Association of Entrepreneurs. Today I have a very special guest. We have Michael Beavis here today. He's with the Denver Economic Development and Opportunity organization and the city and county of Denver. So he's here today to talk to us about small business resources and things that we can do to kind of work with the city. So thank you so much for being here, Michael. It's great to have you.
Yep, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. So can you just give us a tiny little background about yourself and kind of some things that you're working on?
Sure, yeah. So I'm the Director of Innovation and Entrepreneurship for the City of Denver. As you mentioned, I work in the Office of Economic Development and Opportunity. I work specifically in the area of business development, so business attraction and retention primarily. And we work, hand in hand kind of with the mayor's office. So our division is really kind of in partnership with the mayor's office and the mayor's initiatives. But what I do primarily is connect individuals to resources that help them kind of grow and scale their businesses. So my background is I came out of the higher education space where I've always been kind of teaching and overseeing the business side of running higher education. Prior to that, I was a banker and a finance guy for a long time and kind of got burnt out on that, but realized that I really appreciated and enjoyed teaching my clients how to run their businesses better. And so the position that I'm in with the city was created in August of 2018 because of the growth and the demand that we were seeing as far as, entrepreneurs needing kind of a way to kind of bridge that gap on how do you get a hold of all the different resources and things that are out there. And that's what my group primarily focuses on. I happen to be an entrepreneur myself with a company that's growing and scaling at the moment. So I always say I like to practice what I preach.
That's great. And that's so important to have that background as far as in entrepreneurship, because then it's a personal thing for you where you're trying to find solutions not only for yourself, but also how can that help other people. So that's great that you have that background.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So I'll let you take it away as far as presenting for the resources for small businesses. Do you have your presentation with you?
I do. Yep. And I'll just share my screen if you're okay with that. And,
yeah, of course.
Make sure that everybody can see it.
Okay.
So. We look good. You see that slide?
It looks wonderful. That's perfect.
Great. I'm going to give you a whole presentation on just one single slide. So
that's awesome.
I'm anti-PowerPoint slide typically, but this particular one I've been able to condense it down into one slide. So I'm going to share this with you here, and I'm just going to kind of walk through this slide as I talk about the resources. And again, this slide doesn't capture everything, but it's a good kind of starting place to get everybody connected. And so the way you read this slide is kind of top to bottom and then left to right, right? So at the top here, you see these kind of two pie-shaped graphics. In what we're talking about on the top piece is funding, right? Which is always the piece that entrepreneurs are hungry for. And you see how it starts out with smaller dollar amounts, the seed funding or angel round funding, and then kind of gets to larger sizes as we get into later series funding. And then the pie graphic just below it where it says participants, that shows you that the number of participants basically reduces as you get deeper and deeper into the funding rounds. And that's just simply because companies and or individuals just kind of fall out of the mix because they don't have, as you and I were talking about, Stephen, beforehand, the grit kind of to grind through and get through that. But where I'm going to focus most of my discussion is on this big arrow here, right in the center of the slide. And on the left-hand side, you see idea, right, or ideation phase of, creating companies all the way to the Fortune 500 types. And that's what I do in my day-to-day job, work with people at all stages of the entrepreneurial journey. So whether it be, hey, I have an idea kind of sort of maybe, I'm not sure if this should be a business, to the Fortune 500 companies that say, hey, we hear Denver's a hot spot in the country and we need to open a second headquarters there or relocate our entire operation there. And I work with those companies to help them get situated here in Denver. So I'm going to start on the left-hand side here, and we talk about resources that we refer to as kind of pre-startup or very, very early stage. And we have a resource within the city that we call the Commons on Champa. And the Commons on Champa is what we call a P3 entity, so a public-private partnership. And what that means is that the city owns the building. It actually was an old police station, and it's operated by a nonprofit entity called the Downtown Denver Partnership. And what we do in that space is we offer a ton of programming and resources, and this is where I'm going to kind of focus the majority of my time here today. And because our motto for the Commons on Champa is if you're starting up, you should start here. And what we do in that space is me and my team, as an example, we have offices in that building, and we offer what we call advisory hours. So any individual can come in right off the street, pick up the phone, call us, schedule an appointment, however they want to do it, and talk to us about any aspect of their business. To, again, I have an idea, I'm not sure if this should be a business, how can I get started, to I need help writing a business plan, to developing a marketing strategy, to connecting to a legal resource, to connecting with the US Patent and Trade Office because I created a widget and I think it needs a patent. We can help connect you to all of those resources, and it's 100% free of charge to you. So even in the time of COVID, we've been able to continue with the advisory hours. And so we schedule one-on-one phone calls or Zoom meetings or different events like what we're doing here today, just to kind of help connect you in that regard. The Commons on Champa is a physical space. We refer to it as kind of free co-working space. So prior to COVID, and hopefully here coming up later this year, we'll reopen again. But any individuals can come in off the street and use free Wi-Fi, free coffee, kind of connect and collaborate with one another. We have open space, kind of an office environment. We have 3 conference rooms in there. We have a huge event space where you can host up to about 200 people for, a launch party or an educational seminar or things like that you can use most of the resources in there, again, free of charge. In addition to just having the space there, we offer a ton of programming in there to help early stage companies. So one of the programs that we offer in there is a program that we call Co-Starters. So think like Colorado Starters. It's a 9-week long, low cost, no cost, pre-accelerator type of program. So the program runs for 9 weeks. They meet once a week from 6 to 9 p.m., say on Wednesdays. And you get a ton of coaching and programming from existing entrepreneurs within the Denver ecosystem that'll support and help you kind of grow your idea into a full-blown business. It results in a celebration type event at the end where you get to pitch your idea to an audience of people, and unlike a typical pitch where you kind of firm it up with an ask for money, you ask for connections and resources. So here's my business idea, here's the concept, this is why I created it. What I need help with is connection to get into schools and education institutions, as an example, right? And then audience members will kind of network and mingle with you afterwards to help make some of those connections. The other thing that we do as part of our office, and we typically run these out of the Commons on Champa, but again, we're doing it virtually right now, is that for any businesses that are looking to do business, say with the city or county of Denver, as an example, we offer programming on how you go about doing that, right? These are the steps you need to take. These are the forms you need to fill out. These are the certifications you need to have, et cetera. And so we try to take the guesswork out of figuring out how to get plugged in and connected with that. So, if you have a business and you want to do something out of the airport, say as an example, have a retail location out there or a food business, we can kind of help with that. If you're a contractor type and you want to be able to bid on certain contracts that the city puts out, whether it be construction related or consulting services or whatever it is, again, we offer that kind of training and support, typically run through the Commons on Champa. So I'll throw it up in the chat room as well, just so people have the links and the website there for the Commons on Champa, as well as our office, Denver Office of Economic Development and Opportunity. That way, If you're looking for connections or resources that I'm talking about during this presentation, that's the best place to start. We also use an app through the Commons on Champa that we call Startup Space. Super user-friendly. I highly encourage people to participate in the app. It doesn't cost anything. You go on, you create a profile, and you list out there either things like areas of expertise that you might have as an entrepreneur or things that you need as an example. And then when people go into the various areas of the app, you get an alert on your phone that says, hey, Steve's looking for some marketing support and help. And if that happens to be what you do, as an example, you can connect with those individuals and help provide and offer your services, or you can go out there and seek those services. The other nice thing about the Startup Space app is it's not just limited to Denver. So it's a nationwide connection and resource. If you happen to have a business or you're looking at participating in doing business in another market, Startup Space app might be a good resource for you there. Then as we kind of slide over, and the way that this slide is designed is so that you kind of see the natural flow and progression of how businesses tend to grow and get plugged in and connected with resources here in Colorado in general, but primarily in Denver is how we've designed this. So startup accelerators, very common and typical. Most entrepreneurs have heard of accelerator programs. We're home to several here in Colorado, several in Denver, and I'm just going to talk about a few of the big ones. So Rocky Venture Club, hands down, is probably the largest angel investment chapter in the country, and they run a program called an hyper accelerator program. So very different and unique from traditional accelerators, where it's only 1 week in length. And it's 50, 60 hours worth of work where the entrepreneur is kind of cramming through all the resources that they need. And then it culminates into them doing actual real live pitch events as part of, in front of real investors to raise seed or angel round capital as part of that program. Then the other kind of big ones that are here at home in Colorado is Techstars. Most people have heard of that. It's an international accelerator program that was started by several local, highly successful entrepreneurs in the Colorado community, and including our current governor, Jared Polis, is one of the original founders of the Techstars program. So traditional accelerator model, 3 months in length. It's very common that these accelerators will offer a sum of money to participate in the program. So maybe they'll initially give you $25,000 in exchange for a small percentage of the company. That $25,000 is really designed to help you pay for your living expenses while you participate in a 3-month-long program that's typically 40 to 50 hours a week of you really just staying focused on your business, doing a ton of connections with mentors and past advisors that will help you grow and start your business. I happen to serve as a mentor for the Techstars program, as well as several others that are offered. And then each of the accelerator programs tend to have a different focus, right? So I encourage people that are considering an accelerator program to look at all the different accelerator programs and see if there's a particular focus. Some are greater for people that are creating tech companies, the next app, the next SaaS-based product, something like that. Some are better for physical products. Some are better for consulting. And some of the accelerator programs offer different cohorts, if you will, that have a specific industry focus. There's other programming that exists throughout the city as well on these kind of accelerator models. You see on the graph here, Rocky Mountain Microfinance does a boot camp. Mikasa does some things that are specific to really early stage entrepreneurs and or focus specifically on, say, food entrepreneurs and things of that nature. So look around. Again, our office can help make those connections for you if you don't know where to get started. Again, go back to the Commons on Champa or look for some advisory hours from our office, and we can kind of explore some ways to help you get connected there. So you see some of those projects that I listed there in the third kind of green bullet on the arrow there. Then post Accelerator, I run a program through the city again called Scale Up. And so what that program is really designed for is entrepreneurs who have typically gone through an accelerator program. They typically have raised some outside capital already to the tune of about $500,000 to $2.5 million. They're typically generating revenue about $2.5 million or less. And they're just looking for that extra push to help them kind of move forward and keep the business thriving and growing into what we call middle market. So 10 million, 20, 50 million in revenue is really kind of what the goal is, to try to strive into that space. The program is celebrating its 5-year anniversary this year. And the program was really created to help something that's coined in the industry as the Valley of Death. So it's a terrible name, but it just happens to be what it is. But this is kind of the phase post-accelerator where a lot of companies tend to struggle, and then they kind of experience burnout or capital, starvation, so to speak, and they're not able to continue to grow and move the company forward. So our Scale Up program was created to help those individuals or help those individual companies kind of ride out and get through that phenomenon, so that, from the city standpoint, if we can help those businesses thrive and be successful, they're going to create jobs and everybody kind of wins in that process. So there is no cost for the program. It's completely free, but it's highly curated. So I interview about 75 CEOs from companies throughout the entire year. We run the program once a year for 6 months. And then we narrow the cohort down to about 15 to 18 companies. We just kicked off our cohort for 2021 with 18 companies in it. And it's intended to be very diverse, not only from the makeup of the CEOs themselves, but the industries in which the companies are focused on. So we run that program in partnership with the Blackstone Entrepreneur Network. And their advisors. So the Blackstone Entrepreneur Network, again, is a network of very successful entrepreneurs who have had multiple successful exits, and they just kind of give back and provide support to the companies that are part of our program. Again, connection to resources, coaching, mentoring, subject matter expertise, whatever it happens to be. That's how we kind of run that program. I mentioned to you, Stephen, when we were chatting just before this conversation started, one of the things that we focus on in this program is the overall mental health of the entrepreneurs themselves. Because, again, burnout happens mentally and physically, as well as, capital starvation and these kinds of things. And so we want to make sure that we provide an opportunity for the founders and the CEOs to reflect and kind of stay sane and healthy mentally as they're kind of riding out this journey. So you can, your friends and family typically are pretty supportive of what you're doing, but they really, truly don't get it. When they're trying to understand all the struggles and the different things that happen as part of that journey. So in the program, we provide, content again and resources that help them from the business side of things, but then we also have a partnership with the Colorado Thought Leaders Forum, which is a CEO forum that helps provide what I call a grounding activity when we have our monthly meetings to help the CEOs kind of stay healthy mentally throughout that process. It's extremely critical. And as you kind of continue to slide to the right here on our arrow and our presentation, you see that there's certain events that happen throughout the city throughout the year. And one of the number one things, of course, that people are always looking for support for and need for is capital, right? So whether it be debt financing or equity financing, we can help, again, make those connections and keep you apprised of the different events that are happening within town. So we partner with some local, what we call Cdfis, so Community Development Finance Institutions. These are resources that are designed specifically to help early stage companies. So companies that I say are not yet quite bankable, right? It's not because the company's doing anything wrong. It just simply means because the traditional banking model requires you to be in operation for several years, provide 3 years worth of tax returns, all profit, the profitability, all that kind of stuff. And that obviously is not always possible, especially for early stage companies. So these CDFI groups they're more what we call character-based lenders, right? So they're banking on the idea that you've created, your passion for the project, your thoroughness in developing your marketing strategy that builds confidence in them that you're going to be able to acquire customers, et cetera, et cetera. And they can provide debt financing. The city, our office, I oversee a program that we just simply call the Revolving Small Business Loan Fund. And we can help provide additional support in a program that we refer to as Gaap Financing. So let's just say you're going out and you're building a project, and let's say the project costs $500,000 because you need capital to run the business. You found a physical space and it needs some build out, and there's some equipment that you have to bring in, et cetera. And the total cost to do all that is $500,000. You come in with some money from your own pocket or from friends and family round or something like that, and maybe even a potential investor, and or you're working with one of these CDFI groups and they say, hey, we like this project, but 500 is too much for us. We can do 300,000, and you have 100,000 to come in, but you're still short and it's got to be at 500,000. That's when you and or the CDFI will reach out to us and say, we got a project, we think it's great, this is where we're at. Our program will help fill that gap in the financing. So some stipulations with the program is that we never fund more than 50% of the project. That's why it's called Gaap Financing. We actually have a mandate that says we won't replace publicly available funds, meaning you have to prove to us that you went to a bank or some other types of lenders and they said no. And so we have to be able to prove that in the process. And then we have some special interests as far as the part of town that your business might be in, the industry focus that you have. We specifically try to work with entrepreneurs that are listed as a minority or women-owned businesses and things like this. Again, people that traditionally have not had access to capital in the past, and that's who we're kind of working with in that process. But again, for capital needs, you can come start at the Commons on Champa, and we can help connect you and put you in contact with a handful of resources that can get that conversation moving forward. And then kind of on the far right of the program of the slide here, you see something there listed as Denver Gazelles. This is a program that no longer exists, but it was intended to be a program to highlight companies that basically are on the path to become the next unicorn in town. And for those of you who've been entrepreneurs for a while, the unicorn is kind of the benchmark everybody's trying to strive for. That's when you become a $1 billion valuation of a company that's valued at $1 billion. The program didn't really have a good structure to it. And the reality of it is that a lot of the companies that we're helping grow throughout the process in Denver were becoming unicorns long before we could even get them into a Gazelle type program. But on the far end of the spectrum, which is not on this slide because I haven't updated it yet, some of the resources that I'm working on right now from the city's perspective is building out some physical space that will provide additional resources to support entrepreneurs. So for now, I'm simply calling it the innovation space. I'm not calling it a center or district or a hub or a pavilion or anything that currently exists in the market that's improperly labeled. But it will be a large space, probably 150,000 square feet of space or more, that will combine large corporate entities working alongside one-person startups. Or early stage companies, right? So again, think of the concept. I'll use this example of healthcare, just because it's on the front of everybody's mind right now with COVID. But let's say you're working on building some kind of technology that supports healthcare in some way, whether it be for the individual patient, for the doctors, for record keeping, whatever it happens to be. And who's going to be your client? Well, your client's going to be the large hospital systems, right? So we would potentially combine those within the same space, right? So their innovation teams working along these early stage startups who are creating the next innovation or the next idea that's going to help solve everybody's problems. That way you have easier access to the decision makers within those organizations that'll help you move the needle forward in that space. The other two components that will be in the building that don't currently exist anywhere in our ecosystem is something that I call a shared lab component. So oftentimes, when I go back to that phenomenon as known as the valley of death, where companies burn out is because they run out of capital because they're either paying for lease space to be in a building or they're buying lab equipment and things like this, very expensive pieces of equipment to actually get through their R&D process. And so the idea behind the shared lab component is that companies will vie for the opportunity to utilize the lab for low or no cost for up to 24 months to get through that R&D process so that they can develop their MVP and show that they have something that can be commercialized, and then will help attract some outside investment capital to them so they can grow and scale quite rapidly. The other two pieces that will be in there that again, don't currently exist in an open format for early stage entrepreneurs for makers. So if you're going to make a physical widget, you're going to make the next great outdoor clothing brand, because here we are in Colorado, you'll have access to equipment, programming, and resources that can help you, again, get through that prototyping and that small batch production phase. The other piece is that there'll be a retail component, so you can showcase that product live to the general public and get real-time feedback while you're in that prototyping and small batch phase and make final tweaks that you need before you go on and go out to do large-scale production. The other component will be for food entrepreneurs. So one of the things that most early-stage food entrepreneurs struggle with is access to commissary kitchens and being able to combine and form partnerships with other early stage food entrepreneurs so that they can take advantage of the cost benefits of economies of scale, right? So if you're an early stage food entrepreneur and you're still buying your food, your ingredients from your local grocery store or even a Costco, you're not able to reduce the cost to produce those food items fast enough to generate the profits that you need to kind of ride that out. So there'll be access again to a commissary kitchen, programming, resources, and a retail component so we can showcase the product live to the general public. So whether you're doing consumer packaged goods, you're making the next protein bar or trail mix or whatever it is that you're doing, to a catering business, to a food truck, to a restaurant, you'll have access to be able to showcase your food products and get that feedback and resources from there. So with that, Stephen, I'm going to stop blabbering. I'm going to reserve some time for some questions. And or happy to follow up and provide any additional details on anything I covered in that slide pretty quickly.
Wow. The amount of resources that you have at DEDO, it's almost mind blowing that in any stage of an entrepreneurial business, you have resources for them. So anything from that acceleration stage, even the innovation space up to the big dreams of being the unicorn, all of those things you have covered. And it's just amazing that, there are so many things available that people may not know about. So I don't see any questions right now, but I just want to reiterate that if you're a member or if you're just viewing this and you're an entrepreneur, you have to go to DEDO and capitalize on some of these resources. There are things that are completely free. They're there for anybody to utilize. It's just a matter of taking that action and being able to do it, because you have people that are going to guide you through each of these steps, teach you how to scale up, all of these things. I mean, it's just so amazing, the resources that are there. So
yeah, I appreciate that, Stephen. I always jokingly say that it's not really a joke, but I have a lot of conversations all day, every day with entrepreneurs. And usually the conversation ends with, gee, I didn't even know your office existed, or I didn't even know the city offers those kinds of resources. And coincidentally, I happen to sit on the board for Colorado Companies to Watch, which is a nonprofit entity that recognizes kind of the top 50 growing companies in Colorado. Well, in that role, I happen to chair a committee known as the Economic Development Committee. So I work with all the other economic development folks across the entire state. And I highly stress to the entrepreneurs, make sure you're connecting with your local Office of Economic Development, because we're all out there providing the resources. Because again, from the city standpoint, if you're successful, we're successful, right? And so that's why we're out here, and that's why we exist in the first place.
That's amazing, and that's the best way to stimulate the economy is to focus on these small businesses and entrepreneurs. I mean, we're the backbone of the economy in some ways. We need to make sure that we're growing and we're supporting our local businesses. So again, Michael, this has been so informational and so helpful for all of our entrepreneurs. One more time, go to DEDO. That's the Denver Economic Development and Opportunity. And this is the innovation and entrepreneurship section. Thank you so much for being here, Michael. I really appreciate all the information.
Great. Yep.
We'll definitely stay in touch. I'll make sure that I talk to you after the interview.
Great. Yep. And I just typed in the two kind of primary resources that I mentioned during the presentation. So if you go to denvergov.org or just Google Commons on Champa, those resources will come up, and look at what we're offering there from the programming standpoint. So
that's perfect. And I did just see one question come in, and it was just a question on how can we get the copy of that slide that was shared today. So we'll make sure that we post that in the comments, and we have the resources for that as well, so you can take a look at that.
Great. Yep. I encourage you to share that around. I also put my direct contact information in the chat as well. So if you want to shoot me an email, if you want to call me on my cell phone or shoot me a text message, I'm pretty quick to respond. And you don't have to be in Denver. I'm happy to help connect and guide you wherever I can if you happen to be outside of the Denver area. So
that's amazing. Thank you so much, Michael.
Sure. Yeah, my pleasure.
All right. And if you're viewing this and you're not a member of RMA right now, please get on to www.rmae.co and sign up. Membership is completely free, and we offer tons of resources. I mean, we're having talks with companies that they have all the resources that you need there to help your business grow. We want to show you the way. We want to be able to give you the guidance and the resources to get there. We have courses, we have engagement with networking opportunities, we have a book club. Please just get on to RMA and see how we can help you. And also, get on to DEDO and capitalize on these resources. They're available, they're there. And the only reason that people aren't getting on is because they don't know about them. So now that you know, jump on. It's your opportunity right now. Thank you so much for being here again, Michael. And let's go to our outro.